salsa, I think, has that kind of a sexy image anyway. So
That's right. Salsa is a very fun, energetic, it's sexy dance. So it makes you feel more confident with yourself, more sexy. And when somebody sees yourself more confident and sexy, then a lot of things come along with that.
Sure.
Right.
It's full circle. It's their film career, their life, and then obviously it culminates in where they're buried.
No, not the homes of the stars, but the graves of the stars.
Absolutely.
So. Now, I like some of the stories about Betty Davis. Apparently, she was a pretty tough cookie.
Tough cookie in real life and on screen.
When she heard that Joan Crawford was dead.
Oh yeah, we don't say bad things about the dead. Joan Crawford is dead. Good. It's kind of
Today, personal trainer Luly Mitchell tells you why salsa music is not only a great cardio workout, but can also spice up your sex life. And later in the show, Michael Berry, author of Fade to Black, discusses the life and afterlives of some of the biggest stars of old Hollywood. But up first, Luly Mitchell, great to have you here today, Luly.
Thank you for inviting me, Greg.
And I do want to mention your DVD is Fiesta Latina?
Fiesta Latina.
Oh,
Translated
right.
in English is Latin Party.
Okay, well, we're ready for a party today. And, you know, but so the dancing is so big these days, you know, with the shows on TV and really even in the movies, I think song and dance are making a comeback.
That's right.
But salsa, I think, has that kind of a sexy image anyway. So.
That's right. Salsa is a very fun, energetic, it's sexy dance. So everybody wants to learn how to dance salsa, but it doesn't matter if you're a little kid or you're an adult or a senior citizen, you can learn salsa steps. And also they have a lot of salsa classes in the local gyms, or if you don't want to join a gym, you can just have a workout video with dance in it, and then you can dance in
so
your
you got the workout video, and,
yeah.
but you also teach this though yourself.
I do, yeah. I created a class called Fiesta Latina, Latin Party. When somebody tells you, let's go to a party, it's better than if somebody tells you, let's go work out. What would you rather? So it feels more fun go to a party. So we have a daytime party. You know, it's like everybody moves their hips, their shoulders, their legs. It's great exercise for the core muscle. They tone your legs to your arms, and it's a really nice for your posture as well. So it makes you feel more confident with yourself, more sexy. And when somebody sees yourself more confident and sexy, then a lot of things come along with that.
Sure.
Right?
You'll be dancing a lot more.
That's right.
We'll have a problem finding a partner. But, you know, it seems like a lot more fun than hitting the treadmill, but it's actually it's great cardio, though.
It is a great cardiovascular. I mean, you can burn up to 500 calories in one class. It depends on the tempo of the song you're dancing.
Like an hour class or something?
1 hour class burns like 300 to 400 calories, but if you do it at faster tempo, it burns more calories.
How does that compare with running or jogging or the Stairmaster or something like that?
Well, I will tell you, it's fun. You know, it's more fun. You just feel the dance. You know, it's a very passionate music that invites everybody to dance. So the treadmill is a little bit boring for some people, and running too. You know, like you feel like you want to end soon. But when you're dancing salsa, it's like you want to go on and on and on and on, and you don't realize you're exercising, you're toning your body, and you're having fun.
Well, yeah, you know, there are so many different workout and nutrition plans and programs. I think the idea of dancing your way into shape, though, actually does sound like one of the more fun ones.
Oh, yeah, that's great. But now that you mentioned nutrition, is very important that what you eat, too. You know, it's not just dancing and then all your calories and then you look great. I mean, it has to...
So salsa's good for dancing, but not on your food, or is it good on your food, too?
No, salsa's good. I love salsa. But by the way, now that you mentioned that salsa comes from, it means sauce, you know, because salsa is a spicy and flavor to put on your food. So salsa music, salsa dance is you have more spicy moves and more flavor when you're everybody. It's not. It doesn't help you just with your sex life. It helps you with your life in general. You know.
Now, do you see a lot of people get in shape doing this?
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of beautiful workout out there. You know, I can mention a lot. That's Zumba class, Fiesta Latina, and you've seen people witnesses all the changes in their body, in their mood, and their spirits, and in everything, mind, body, and spirit. So
now, on the other hand, could that be intimidating for some people? Maybe if you do need to get in shape, you think, oh, it's too sexy for me, or I'm not ready for it yet, or I mean, is there maybe are people hesitant that maybe they think they need to be a little more?
Yeah, let me tell you something. Usually what you just said happens to me. Like people come and say, I want to take your class, but I'm waiting for me to lose some weight to take your class. Or I want to take your class, but I want to learn some salsa steps. And I say, you need to take my class so you can start learning salsa dance and you're going to lose weight. Like, don't feel intimidated. I mean, we are there. It's like a party. We're all there to have fun. And when you less expect it, you lose weight, and then you having fun and learn the steps too.
Now, I guess one other problem or issue some people may have, though, is having a partner. What if you want to do this and don't have a partner? Or I guess in the class you don't need a partner? Or,
no, in a class you don't need a partner, but also there's a lot of dance studios that they welcome single people, and then you go there, they teach you the dance steps, the salsa steps. Usually also they have tango classes and another Latin music. And you can learn the dance, and then you find somebody there that you may connect.
There's a way to. It's like dating and dancing in the same thing.
Exactly.
Speed dating or something.
You kill two birds with one stone, right?
That's right. And probably, and I always think that is one of the better way to meet people, when you're actually doing something fun instead of saying, oh, I'm going to go find somebody or look on the internet. I mean, if you're doing an activity and you both have the same interests, then you're probably more likely to meet someone that should be interested in it.
We need to start looking for interesting things to do. Like, try not to focus just doing the same things. Like, usually marriages get bored, like, because everything is the same. So you just sign up for a salsa dance class and you'll see what happens.
Do you see that married couples coming in who maybe
yeah, definitely. And they have told me, like their lives changed totally after they learned the salsa dance. But it's not just as much what they learn, is just the connection, between both of them, because the music is a lot of embrace, the dance, and then the let go, and the more energetic, slow move, and then fast moves, and they love it.
Now, how does it compare with? I know you do various forms of dance, but tango and salsa, and I'm not very okay. I have two left feet, but what makes it different than, let's say, the tango or?
Tango is a very passionate dance too, and it was born in the dance in Argentina. It's really good. Also, it firms your body and tones your muscle. But if you want to do a cardiovascular workout, if you do salsa, you're gonna get more cardio than tango. But both dances are beautiful and passionate about them. It's like any Latin dance that you can learn is really fun, and you don't need to feel intimidated if you have two left feet. I have a lot of students that come, I have two left feet, but then they're like having fun, it's like
and there's something about the music itself. I used to live in Miami, or when I visit there, sometimes I'd be out jogging at night along Ocean Drive, and I'd hear the salsa music, I guess it is, coming from the clubs or the restaurants, and it would just kind of put you in the mood, for dancing or something,
That's right. So. And then you look at the people happy too. You look at salsa dancers there, and then you're like, your mood changes totally. It's like it's great. It's a great cardiovascular workout, a great for everything, for your mind, your body, your spirit. And I invite everybody to really try a salsa dance class.
How often do you do this when you take the class? Is it a couple of times a week, or every day, or once a week, or how often do you
recommend to the people? If you can do it like 4 to 5 times a week, will be great. So that will be 5 hours a week. But I recommend you to make a lot of variety too. Like, one day you can dance salsa, another day you can go running, another day swimming. Like, variety is best for your body.
And you said you have all ages doing this.
Oh, I'm sorry?
All ages, old and young?
All ages, yeah. Salsa dance, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, my 4-year-old is dancing already. Like, he just listens to the music and he starts like dancing. Or I'm choreographing.
Probably on YouTube, right?
Yeah. So I'm choreographing a routine and he goes, no, I don't like that one. I don't like that step. So, okay, show me which one. And it's amazing, like, you learn from little kids too. You even learn from senior citizens. They move. Everything is about movement. And some of my routines, they come from observing little kids, how they move, observing senior citizens, how they move. It's really...
Well, it's having an effect on me. I feel like I'm ready to go dancing already. Well, thank you very much, Luly Mitchell. Her DVD is Fiesta Latina.
Fiesta Latina, and my website, they can find it, www.lulyforma.com.
We'll be right back. And we are back. Joining me now is Michael Thomas Berry, author of Fade to Black, Graveside Memories of Hollywood's Greats.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be
have you
here.
today.
Thank you so much.
Well, so you're kind of like our Hollywood star map or tour here today. You've got a book of some of the legends of Hollywood, but these are all people who've won Academy Awards, right?
Right. I started with the first Academy Awards ceremony, which the award started in 1927, and I stopped in 1950 when the golden age of television started. So it's kind of a capsulized time, the golden age of Hollywood. And basically I talk about the actors, actresses, directors, and the best supporting actors who won the awards for each ceremony.
And then you also, so you tell a bit about their life and then also their, well, I call it afterlife, but let's say their death or where they're buried.
Right, it's full circle. It's their film career, their life, and then obviously it culminates in where they're buried. Correct.
Okay. So that's where the star map side comes in. It's like not the homes of the stars, but the graves of the stars.
Absolutely, that's correct, yes.
Okay, well, I'm just going to throw out some names here. I mean, you cover so many people in the book, but actually, you know what, since we'll just start right there with Katharine Hepburn. How is that?
Katharine Hepburn, one of the great beauties, one of the great actresses of all time, a character in herself. Her life story it unfolds true better than fiction. She's from Connecticut. She's buried with her folks in a very quaint little cemetery in Connecticut, and I was able to visit. I was very, that's the thing about the book. I tried to visit as many of the grave sites as I could so I could get the feeling behind the story as being as close to, the point of the book is being as close to our heroes and the celebrities as we can.
And you said a lot of times you were surprised by the fact that a lot of the graves are fairly modest or just a simple marker. It's not necessarily some huge elaborate vault or something that you might expect.
Absolutely. You know, we venerate these actors and actresses. We see them on the silver screen and we want to make them bigger than life. But oftentimes when we go there, our expectations are kind of, they bring you as, oh my gosh, just an ordinary tombstone or a marker, or sometimes not a marker at all. And it's like their lives are, just like us. So it's kind of like, it was kind of like it brings it all full circle to me. And although there are monuments such as Betty Davis and Mary Pickford who do have elaborate tombs that are befitting their status of who they were in life.
Now, Katharine Hepburn, going back to her, you said she's buried in Connecticut. Is that open to the public, or is
Absolutely,
it
it is open to the public,
okay.
and you have to know where you're going. It's one of those things that you have my book or other books that are out there. You kind of got to know. You can't just walk in there and go, okay, I'm going to just waltz up to there, because oftentimes it's difficult. You got to kind of spend your time, and you can wander around an awful lot, and you can miss some of these. You can walk right past them, and you're like, I did. So it's something you got to really prepare for.
There are two places in town that I've heard a lot about. One is Forest Lawn, of course, and the other is I forget what it's called, but the cemetery in Westwood. I think there are a lot of
Westwood, and that's where Marilyn Monroe is buried. It's just a little 1-acre cemetery that's like packed with Hollywood.
But she's not in your book, by the way.
No, she's not. She didn't win an Academy Award. She doesn't get mentioned in the book, but because these are just the Academy Awards prior to 1950. But you can't miss her. It's one of the most iconic cemeteries in all of Hollywood. You have Hollywood Forever, obviously, as well. But Westwood is one of the things. It's an acre of just Hollywood history.
Yeah,
and I talk about
I think
that in this
Mel
book as
Torme
well.
had just been buried there when I went there.
Right, and there was the rumor that Elizabeth Taylor was as well, but she ended up being buried at Forest Lawn, Glendale.
Oh,
because her parents are there at Westwood.
Oh, so there are a couple of Forest Lawns?
Yes, there's a whole bunch of Forest Lawns. There's Forest Lawn, Glendale, which is the flagship, so to speak, and then there's the Hollywood Hills, where Betty Davis is. Clark Gable is at the Great Mausoleum with Michael Jackson as well. That's Glendale. So that's kind of the mecca of the Forest Lawns, is Glendale.
Well, when you mentioned some of the more elaborate ones, you said Mary Pickford and Betty Davis.
Correct.
So what have they got? They've got
definitely a large marble epitaph, not of themselves, but it kind of, you go up there and you're like, yeah, that's Betty Davis, and she's very prominent. She overlooks the studio, I think it's Warner Brothers studio in the distance, and it's a fitting end to a fitting career. Mary Pickford's actually in a private garden area of Forest Lawn, Glendale, with Humphrey Bogart and several other celebrities. Well, Warner Baxter, I talked in the book, who was another leading man of the era. And hers is the same kind of situation, but the general person can't get the access there, which is a shame. They're locked behind high gates and things.
And now you said, I thought it was interesting because I guess over time we've had a few of America's sweethearts, but I guess the inscription on hers is America's sweetheart.
America's sweetheart was Mary Pickford's silent era, and she didn't transition well when the talkies came. She turned more into a behind-the-scenes mogul with United Artists and whatnot, and kind of moved off away from being an on-screen star to behind the scenes, which was an interesting segue for her. But she did get an Oscar, basically based on her prior work, which is in the silent era.
Yeah. Now, did you suggest though that she may have kind of engineered that Oscar win?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when they started tweaking the awards of how they would vote. A lot of this stuff was growing pains in the early years of the Oscars, and that's something I didn't know going into this. It was one of those things I didn't have a lot of knowledge about. I loved Hollywood. I grew up, watching the old films, but I didn't know the behind the scenes, how the Academy Awards started and how they developed through the years and how they got started and how they are to what they are today. But it was interesting. I think that with Mary Pickford, she kind of was self-promoting to, not want to say bribe the voters,
giving gifts
and come over to my home and pool parties and whatnot, which was totally Hollywood.
She had that big house in Beverly Hills too, right?
Pickfair, yes, and that's. I don't think Pickfair is there any longer. They tore down the building.
There's some controversy.
There's controversy behind that, but that was the old glamour of Hollywood. She had the big mansion up in the Hollywood Hills there, but it was a fun ride to learn these stories, which were fascinating.
Now I like some of the stories about Bette Davis because I loved her as an actress, but apparently she was a pretty tough cookie.
Tough cookie in real life and on screen. So what you saw on screen was her in real life, and she had an ongoing feud with Joan Crawford, which lasted till their dying days. How that got started, no idea, but it definitely was something. They definitely disliked each other, and that perpetuated through, and they would throw barbs at each other constantly, but they were both really good actresses, and I think it was just they were insecurities and whatnot of the time. But the glamour shows up in the photos I tried to pick in the book. Were definitely tried to do some more rare photos, bringing out who the actress and actors were, and it was interesting to me how the studios rounded their stars. They controlled their public and private personas. Not like today. They're free agents. They do their own thing, as we know.
Like Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen. He's out there doing his own thing.
That's about as free agent as you get.
Yeah, he's free agent. But Louis B. Mayer and MGM, and they had their stars, and they definitely made sure they controlled them. And it was very interesting to learn about that.
One last thing I wanted to ask you about Bette Davis was you give a quote that when she heard that Joan Crawford was dead.
Oh yeah, we don't say bad things about the dead. Joan Crawford is dead. Good. That's a paraphrasing the quote, so to speak, but it just goes to show you how much animosity they had to one another, and there's some funny stories in there, and there's tragedy as well. It's just like normal life. We're all people, and we all in the end up in the same place, but their lives are on the silver screen and will last forever. And these films, the classic films, especially the ones that won awards, will always be there. And it's definitely a snapshot of history that will never be repeated.
We'll be right back. And we are back with Michael Thomas Berry. He is the author of Fade to Black, Graveside Memories of Hollywood's Greats, 1927 and 1950. That's a mouthful, but I said the whole thing.
It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Well, great to have you. Okay, so there are so many great stories in here. You talk a lot about Louis B. Mayer from the early days of Hollywood and starting the Oscars.
Yeah, his little kingdom, Hollywood. He definitely ruled it as a kingdom. He controlled the studio system from the silent era up until the 1950s when it started to wane, but definitely he was in charge, and it was his brainchild, the Academy Awards, which I didn't know going into it how it got started. It was all started with union strife behind the scenes, so he was trying to forestall and get more control over where he felt he was losing control. And actually the award ceremony was an afterthought. It wasn't even in the original plans for the Academy, and how it developed, and they had the ceremony, and how it developed through the years was really interesting.
So you said it almost started out as more of a union busting activity than
absolutely,
a celebration of the arts.
Right, and then it just turned into what it is today, this big extravaganza. But in the beginning, the media really didn't pay much attention to it. The first couple years, it was just, thought, oh, okay. And and they publicized this stuff in advance, so the stars knew who was going to win.
Told the winners
Though
about
the
it.
winners were in advance, and they'd show up.
What do you think? Was it a better show or not?
Yeah, I think it developed. Obviously we don't know what it was like because there's no record of it other than still pictures and whatnot. But I think it obviously evolved when Bob Hope took over, who was who hosted the show the most of anybody.
Do you know when it first started being televised?
It was in the, offhand, I'm not sure. I don't remember when it was actually, but it was the late 30s when it started to be on radio for sure. It was, but
Gotcha.
when it turned onto TV, it started more towards the end of the era, in the 40s when it became a TV. When TV obviously came, newsreels obviously they did that.
I see.
As the theaters, but as far as that.
Where did he end up?
Home of Peace Cemetery. It's a Jewish cemetery in Los Angeles, obviously in Culver City. It's not the greatest of areas now, but at the time it was the mecca for the stars. I mean, you have Curly from the Three Stooges who's there, and just a multitude of Hollywood people as well.
I was going to say, it sounds very morbid, but I was going to say, I guess, choose your cemetery carefully because the neighborhood may go downhill.
It could, and it very well
Or
does.
uphill,
It definitely
I don't know.
changes.
Yeah.
So, but Louis Bermera's Home of Peace Cemetery in Los Angeles.
Well, against so many others, one of my favorites would be John Wayne.
Oh, John Wayne, the Newport Beach, Orange County. Obviously, the legendary John Wayne, bigger than life, and his life was the same off-screen as on-screen. And he retired, not retired, but he lived in Newport Beach and is buried at Pacific View Memorial Park. I don't necessarily talk about in the book, but that's kind of what got me writing this book, my first book.
Oh, that's right, because we were talking on the phone about him, but he's actually not in the book.
He's not in the book, but
Oh.
I got the idea to
This
write
is a
this.
bonus. This is a bonus.
My first book, Final Resting Places, Orange County's Dead and Famous. John Wayne obviously is a prominent citizen of Orange County, and he plays a big part in
I think
my
he's got
first
like a little
book.
airport down
right.
there.
But I was out there, just contemplating life, standing at his gravesite. I started thinking about the other actors and actresses of the era and what their contribution was to the industry and to the world, and how their lives developed. And then it developed into Fade to Black.
Well, since we're on the topic of him, I just want to say that you told me, though, that his grave was initially not even marked, though.
It wasn't marked for 20 years after he died. His son Michael was the executor of his estate, was afraid of all sorts of things,
Crazy fans.
And what they were going to do. And it's one of those, the worst kept secret in Orange County is where John Wayne is buried. And everybody kind of knows where that is. But finally, after 20 years after Michael died, the family then decided to mark his grave with a very simple bronze, marker, just basically his name with a cowboy in the sunset. Very understated for the legend of who John Wayne is.
Sure.
But
sure.
a very beautiful panoramic view of Newport and the Pacific. No better place to rest for eternity for a star of his stature.
Another huge star, Clark Gable.
Clark Gable, Forest Lawn, Glendale, in the Great Mausoleum, not far from Michael Jackson. It's almost like Fort Knox. You're never going to, as the average person, isn't going to get in there and view Clark Gable, and he's buried right next to Carol Lombard, his second wife. Interesting enough. But another one of those places where there's a pantheon of Hollywood and the industry in general. Very understated again. I've been fortunate to be able to visit.
So you have gone
I
in,
have been able to go
okay.
in. Photography is limited, and security is really, really tight. And now with Elizabeth Taylor as well being in the same building, it's even tighter. But one of those things where you can go and you can feel you're there with these legends, and again you can contemplate their contribution to society.
So what do you think, though, the fact that it is so private? Because, for instance, I've been to Westminster Abbey, where Newton and, oh God, I'm trying to think of all the greats who were buried in,
all the monarchs of England.
And it's open to the public.
And
you
Laurence
pay your
Olivier,
5 or 10 euros, 20, I don't
and
know
you
what
can
the hell.
wander around in the epitaphs, and Laurence Olivier is buried at Westminster Abbey. I talk about him in the book as well. But we're talking about Forest Lawn. We're talking the mentality of being able to wander without, I think the original concept that these cemeteries was for the living. And now they've locked them away, and it's kind of a shame in some ways why they're protective. I understand that there are some crazy fans and they can do some things, but I think it can be done in a proper, respectful manner. What that is, I'm not sure, but unfortunately you're not able to visit as many as you wish you would if you could. So basically with my book, you can virtually visit if you wish. Add photos of the ones that I could visit, and if you wish to go, then you can.
Have there been problems with vandalism or anything that you're aware of? Any
Not that
celebrities in
not
particular,
really,
or?
not that I'm aware of. I think a lot of that is just conjecture on the parts, but I'm not privy to what their security is. But I just know that if you're respectful, you'll be okay. I mean, as long as you're not making yourself noticeable, and you can go and have a nice day and wander around and just contemplate it, I think you'll be fine.
Since you focused on Academy Award winners, were you surprised by some of the people who did or didn't win? In particular, the people maybe who didn't win
Interesting.
that you thought might have won?
Very interesting in the fact that as the awards developed, and I think up until this day, it's also sometimes they don't win the award for the actual film, it's more for their body of work. And I think that's been an ongoing trend since it began in 1927. Shockers, no, I didn't really have any shockers. I thought, oh, they should have won for that. 1939, obviously the mecca or the pinnacle of the golden age of Hollywood. I was shocked at the amount of films that came out that year that didn't win, and you're thinking, oh, that didn't win an award? And you're like, and it went on and on. And as film developed from the 30s into the 40s and the 50s, 60s to the present day, it's amazing how cinematography developed, and I loved watching these films, and I tried to watch as many of these as I could in chronological order, and you can definitely see it develop.
I've watched like the AFI Top 100, which was just fascinating itself, from all the years, but it includes a lot of the from the 30s and the great films. So that was really just fascinating.
When color started to come in, Technicolor with The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind, and then it kind of took off from there. And then you look back at the black and white, and you see the glamour. You can see it. It has an era, and it brings up the mystique of that time.
Well, I'm sorry, just time for one last question. Well, since the years have gone by, I mean, at this point, there are only a few people left from that era, right? There are only a few that
There's
are
only a few
still...
handful of actresses around. Now, I was very lucky to meet one of them, Celeste Holm, 1948, for Gentleman's Agreement. I was a chance meeting. I told her what I was doing. I was writing this book, and she was very graceful, and she reviewed my book, loved it, gave me a little tidbits about Betty Davis and behind the scenes, telling me, were these stories correct? Were the quotes right? And she was very respectful, but in her own way, she was like, yeah, she was a tough cookie to deal with. So it was fun. It was fun to meet somebody from that era, because they're basically all gone.
Yeah.
And it's and the few that are left, Olivia de Havilland and her sister Joan Fontaine, and several others. They're elderly. They're in their 90s, and they won't be around long. So to get their stories is really important, because once they're gone, they're gone.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much.
Michael
It's a pleasure.
Thomas Berry. The book is Fade to Black, Graveside Memories of Hollywood Greats. I'd also like to thank Luly Mitchell. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time.